Hello. Today is the day that we're continuing to look at Matthew, and today we are looking at a single verse from the Sermon on the Mount. We're looking at Matthew 7, verse 6. And Matthew 7, verse 6 just says this: Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. And I've heard this verse quoted quite a lot. And being honest, as a pastor, I've had people share this verse with me when I'm struggling, when I've tried to help people, or when I've tried to help people read the Bible or something, and when I've tried to show people and share with people who Jesus is and what Jesus said, and they haven't accepted it, and that can become very discouraging. For you as a pastor, and some people are going, well, Steve, you can't throw your pearls before pigs, which I understand the sentiment, and they're using that to use the Bible to try and encourage me in that. As I say, context is always important in the Bible. And if we don't understand what comes before and what becomes after a verse, we can easily misunderstand a single verse when taken in isolation. Remember, when the Bible was first written and when Jesus spoke, he didn't speak in verses, he didn't speak in chapters, he just spoke. These chapters and verses were added in as references to help us to read and recall the Bible easier. So even though we're looking at one verse and only one verse today, we mustn't take that verse in isolation, but we must look at it as part of a whole. Jesus says here, don't give dogs what is sacred. Don't give pearls to pigs. And if we do, they may trample us to death and tear us to pieces. This is some harsh and grim teaching in 2 sentences. That's it. However, if we look at it in isolation, we can end up seeing all people who don't agree with us as swine, as dogs, as people to stay away from. However, look at the verses before. Jesus has just talked to us about not judging anyone else. Jesus has just talked about sorting ourselves out before judging others. Surely calling other people dogs and pigs is a judgment, and it's quite an extreme one at that. I don't know how you would feel, but I certainly wouldn't be chuffed if someone referred to me as a swine, a pig, or a dog. So if Jesus is teaching us not to judge others, why would he contradict himself straight after? He wouldn't. Could it be actually that Jesus isn't contradicting himself, and at times we've taken this verse too far? Remember, street dogs in this time were seen as rabid and dangerous, and pigs to the Jewish people were unclean animals to be completely stayed away from. So would Jesus, who calls us not to judge, who calls us to love others, who constantly walks toward people who are different from us in all aspects to love and serve them, would he call those people swine and dogs? Of course he wouldn't. What Jesus is talking about here isn't about people, but it's about attitudes towards the truth. Other people will have different opinions and beliefs from us. They will. And it's for us to not judge them for that, but to be open to them and to love them regardless of their different opinions. It's also on us to share truth with them. Now, some people who are different from us will be open to hearing more of what we have to say about the truth. And it is with these people that we share more. Some people will have no idea what we're talking about. And it's with these people that when we share the truth, we share it wisely. So that what we share with them is to help them understand, and it's not lost on them. However, there are some people who are so entrenched in their beliefs in something that's not true that it starts to define their identity. When we share truth with these people, knowing that this truth will shatter their identity, no one will ever get a good response from that. And that truth shared will always sound like a judgment to the other person. Why? Because their identity is wrapped up in the lie that they believe. So we need to be wise. These aren't people to be stayed away from, but these are people that we need to be wise with. This isn't about shunning people. This isn't about ignoring people. And this isn't about ghosting people who are different or have different opinions from us. This is about being wise. If something we are about to share with someone is something that they are not ready to hear, that the door of their hearts isn't open to, that we know that this truth is going to hurt them, insult them, destroy them, should we do it? Because actually, if we do that, their attitude can then seem like that of a rabid dog ready to bite us and ready to trample us to death. Why? Because we have ripped apart who they are. And even though it wasn't meant as a judgment, it sounds like a judgment. It feels like a judgment. And that is why we are called to be wise. For example, if someone says they don't believe in God, then what is the point in telling them what God says about how they're living? If they don't even believe in God, why should they listen and respond to about how something that they don't believe in thinks that they should live? If they don't believe in God, we should be sharing and talking with them about how we know God is real and how God intervenes in our life and God is real for all people. This then helps open the door of their hearts. This is being wise with how we share the truth. And when we share that truth, we won't end up being bitten, or these pearls won't end up being trampled underfoot. We certainly should never be seeing people who have got different opinions from us as dogs or swine and rejecting them outright. No way. How do you see others? How well do you know them? How do you think that they will respond to the truth? Do we know what the next steps and stage is for them on their journey towards the cross? Often we start with people's behaviour and go from there, but that is backwards to what the gospel says. We end up then telling the non-believers about what God says about their behaviour instead of what God says about how he feels about them and what he's done for them. And when we do that, it will feel to them like a judgment, and it will feel to us like we're casting pearls before swine. But when we share with a non-believer how we know God and that Jesus is real and how God and Jesus is there for them, these pearls of truth can be and may be received differently. Then, when there's a recognition of God and when there is an openness to God, people will start to be open towards what God says about how we live. Why should people listen to how God says they should live if they don't believe in him? They won't. But they will start to listen when they know God is real, when they know who God is, and when they know how God feels about them and what he's done for them. Then they'll start to listen about the right ways that God says we should live. Everyone needs the truth. It is by the truth that we're set free. But we need to be wise in how we share the truth. Okay? Jesus did this all the time. Jesus saw the person in front of them and he spoke truth to them in a way that met their need. He didn't share the same thing to every person. He saw them, he listened to them and shared with them the truth that they needed to hear. He spoke into where they were on their journey. Will we use the same discernment and wisdom when we are talking to others? Why? So we can share the amazing transforming life truth of God in a way that doesn't feel like a judgment to them. Luckily, we don't have to do this alone. We've been given the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of the Spirit of God, who can reveal truth. He's even called the Spirit of Truth. He can reveal truth. He can reveal words. He can reveal wisdom just when we need him to help us to do it. So will we turn to him and be open to him and rely on him? How often do we rely on the Holy Spirit to make sure that what we're sharing is the truth that the person in front of us needs to hear in the time that they need to hear it, in the way that they need to hear it? God knows these things. And we are called to call upon God and rely on him for this wisdom when we're sharing the truth. The challenge is, will we?